Red 2 standing by, all 4 lit and in the green. Welcome back to Bomberman 64. Today we are focusing on all the little changes hard mode has made. Now unfortunately I actually forgot to record the different times for the levels. Some of them do actually change, you will have a lot less time, so I'll put those up on screen as we're going. But most notably the location of several gold cards and custom parts will either switch or change entirely depending on the level. So we're going to be going through that today. This will wrap up pretty much everything and we'll also finally get to see all those custom parts. We'll be showing that off at the end. Without further ado, let's get adventuring. So in addition to our much shorter times, enemies in hard mode are also quite a bit stronger. They'll usually have 1 extra hit point. They will also move a lot faster as well, and they tend to more aggressively pursue you, which can actually make blue soldiers kind of dangerous for once. Most of the time you can sneak by them pretty easily. Now, our gold cards in Green Garden Stage 1 aren't that difficult to get, they're still in the same spot. The custom parts have moved slightly within their original locations, so you'll basically have to build the same structures. But if you bring full power, you do not need to worry about chasing that up because, as I mentioned earlier, it can be surprisingly fiddly getting everything you need in Green Garden Stage 1. They probably weren't kidding when they said untouchable treasure, they meant the gold cards, I'd wager. Anyway, we can build a bomb staircase, being careful not to detonate anything, and jump over here. Now, rather than listening to me do some fairly dry and boring tutorials, I think we should probably have an engaging and interesting discussion about a range of things. One of the things I would like to discuss is Bomberman itself. I don't really have the opportunity to do that though, because, well, as I said, I've played Bomberman Land Touch, and I've also played the Game Boy Bomberman for a while. This is the only game with which I have a lot of experience. It's the only one I can really remember things about, and it's kind of disappointing. There have been many Bomberman games across the years. There was a Bomberman game which I believe allows up to 10-player online multiplayer on the Sega Saturn or something like that. Not entirely sure, I'd probably have to do the research. Then again, I have a lot of research for this, but I'm the sort of person, in all honesty, who can be rather late to a lot of trends. It's interesting to know that even though I am a Legend of Zelda fan, I didn't actually play Ocarina of Time when it came out. My first experience with the series was actually in about 2003 when I got Wind Waker. Thankfully, it had Ocarina of Time and Master Quest on the bonus disc, but for some reason I didn't get into Zelda during the Nintendo 64 era. Kind of strange. But then again, I suppose around that time, Pokemon was absolutely huge and that was the thing I was into, so guess it's just sort of strange choices. But it's also the same with a lot of popular culture, really. I tend to miss out on all the trends and things like that. I know it's just kind of, well, weird that I seem to be a bit clueless about a lot of things, and all the things I tend to like, unfortunately I can't really talk to people about, so it's always nice when I can actually share this stuff. Being able to talk about something that was essentially almost a formative part of childhood, it's been really entertaining over the years, is a genuine pleasure. Now I'll admit, this game probably doesn't set the world on fire. The graphics they had were probably in the good but not great category. They're pretty solid, but they're not really anything that's going to make your jaw drop. And the gameplay is some pretty creative platforming. There are some ridiculous things you have to do, but of course, one of the big problems is that there were so many fantastic platformers for the Nintendo 64 that unfortunately Bomberman probably got a bit lost in the mix. Even though there were 2 more games. I don't think we actually got them in Australia. I'm not entirely sure, I'd probably have to do a little bit of research and look that up, but, well, we're kind of a backwater when it comes to some things. We sort of get left out of a lot and we get it later than everywhere else. So I'm not entirely sure if we did get them. But I'm very fortunate that we did actually get Bomberman 64 and we were able to have a lot of fun with that. As I said, I've forgotten more stories than I could ever tell with multiplayer, and that does make me really, really sad because I would love to be able to share all these experiences. But of course, that's one of the problems. You sort of had to be there when a lot of these fiascos and ridiculous situations were actually happening. And I probably didn't actually mention this, but you will unlock 2 of the battle stages when you beat the game. You will unlock the other 2 when you get all 120 gold cards. I've got the benefit of years of records being acquired. It was a lot of work my brother put in. He did do most of the work. He put in a lot of work to get those stages, and he's very proud of having them, especially Blizzard Battle. I'm going to put an asterisk next to my completion of this game because I've got the benefit of the Virtual Console's restore points. So I can just set a restore point, and if I screw up, I'm straight at it. I don't have to wait, and I don't have to just reset the console every time something goes wrong, because that would be incredibly frustrating. And you'd have to work very hard to quickly get all those ridiculous gold cards in Beyond the Clouds in Rainbow Palace. That one is a genuine pain. You'd really have to practice, sharpen your skills, and make sure you got it in enough time. And for people who did that on the Nintendo 64, I have a lot of praise for you because you've done an incredible job. It's kind of interesting looking back on actually doing all those things. My brother has often expressed a sentiment, and I agree with him, that it would be nice to essentially have your memory wiped of a lot of games you really enjoyed, so you can go back and experience them at their peak to get the most fun, basically, out of playing them, like you did when you picked them up for the very first time, learning everything about them. Now, I understand that they're probably not going to hold up to modern scrutiny, so we're kind of ignoring that for the sake of romanticising our adventures again. Now, brief diversion, Red Mountain does have a lot of stupid deaths. I mean, it was the area that annoyed me the most doing the regular recordings. Please note that when you lose your heart in hard mode, it's gone. But, going back to what I was saying, it is interesting discovering things for the first time when you're a kid compared to discovering things when you're an adult. There are lots of amazing things as a kid. Everything looks that bit more spectacular because the world is so much bigger in a sense. As a child, every day is a day of discovery. You're finding out something new, you're doing something new. You don't necessarily have the cynicism of an adult, and I suppose I hesitate to call it cynicism because in some ways you can be a bit cynical, but in other ways you're knowing how the world works. And I admit that that takes away some of the magic of everything, which is why I describe it as the cynicism of being an adult. Kids have a bit more imagination a lot of the time, a lot more creativity, and to adults who do retain that sense of imagination, I'm going to congratulate you just as much because you're doing a great job. You're keeping something important alive. I was once told that it's a very good thing to be childlike, not childish. Keep that sense of wonder at the world, that desire to discover, to do something new, and to think that everything is really fascinating and interesting, rather than just focusing on the mundane and humdrum elements of life. Because compare playing a game for the first time to what we're doing now. When I was playing Pokemon Gold for the first time, it was magical. It was actually the first Pokemon game I played. I had absolutely no idea about team building, so I swept my way through with Feraligatr. It is pretty much hands down the best starter in Johto, and probably one of the best for a casual run easily across the entire series. But I had all these new Pokemon to discover. There were all these fantastic mechanics because I'd got into Pokemon right as it started. I've been involved in the series since its beginning, and it has been a very interesting journey with ups and downs. But there was that incredible sense of wonderment as even those admittedly now very basic designs, those very simple looking Pokemon, just stuck with us. They became the foundation of a pop culture phenomenon, and building on that through Gold and Silver was absolutely magnificent. And to that end, I felt kind of bad when I was playing it Gold version for my second Let's Play, not only because of all the technical problems that plagued me. I have now got a much better solution which I can use for recording things from my laptop, but because when you do come back to it as an adult, you're more likely to notice all the little bits and pieces that actually do go wrong with things. Because technology has moved on, you're going to notice that a lot of things are incredibly clunky. You're going to notice the problems with the level curve, which I still consider a bit of an issue. You're going to notice that the Johto Pokemon aren't as easily available. The lack of moves is going to be a bit problematic, the kind of crummy TMs along the way. The fact that the game balance wasn't always great. But just playing Heart Gold version, you can't go back to the originals. You can't really go back to that sense of wonderment in your childhood. And I suppose that's for the better, because we do develop. We can't cling on to those old days for too long, because we'd never move on. We'd never develop and we'd never better ourselves. Now look, the worst part of all this is that I had some really, really beautiful philosophical ideas thought up. But I had a really busy day and I wound up forgetting everything, which is a bit of a problem. Basically what I'd say is don't be defined by your past. But don't let your future confine you either. Always be flexible, ready to develop. Learn from everything you've done, because that's part of what makes you who you are. You build on everything you do, and you get better as a result of that. It's like technology in various video games. The reason those old games look so terrible in a sense, the reason what you used to do might look so cringeworthy, is because you develop. You constantly grow. And if you're not growing, if you're not looking back on things maybe with a bit of regret, or things looking a bit cringeworthy, or something you did might have been childish or something like that, that's all part of growing up and developing. And we're going to be able to say, hey, these games do look a bit old and clunky and things like that, because everything there has developed too. Like, I'm really glad to note that games have developed such a long way, and that, in a sense, a lot of the games I grew up with are a bit clunky now, and that we have much better ones too. That's really enjoyable. Also note, if you do get blown off, you will wind up back in the first area. The winds do actually push you back this time around, so be careful. Anyway, I'm not entirely sure where to go with that discussion, because I managed to lose all the really, really interesting ideas I have. Sometimes people do say it's very good to sleep on things, but unfortunately for me, it's just all gone, sadly. I'm a little disappointed about that, so we will move on to a new topic. Now, with all my pseudo-philosophical stuff out of the way, and I'm sort of reduced to winging it, I suppose one of the things I could talk about is favourite video game genres. We have plenty to choose from, and there are always going to be certain styles we're best at. As I've mentioned quite a lot of times, or at least hinted at it anyway, I'm pretty much rubbish at any racing game. The only ones I've ever really been good at are the F-Zero series. Mario Kart DS and Mario Kart 7 I was pretty good with. I became incredibly good at the Star Cup on 7, on account of the fact it took me well over 100 tries to do it, because the game didn't like me actually trying to succeed on 150cc. I might have mentioned this before, but to quote from Goldfinger, once is happenstance, twice is coincidence, the third time is enemy action. And when I'm quoting Goldfinger, I'm actually quoting Ian Fleming's novel, as opposed to the movie. I did get stitched up a lot, but I eventually got there, and as a result I was almost unbeatable for a while on the Star Cups. But, aside from that, I did have a pretty good time with Mario Kart 7 and DS. Everything else has been pretty much horrible. Even Super Circuit kind of oscillates between pain in the backside and a lot of fun, and admittedly that was kind of an enjoyable project, but trying to record it was an absolute nightmare, because the perfectionist in me was fighting with the idea of let's just get everything done for the sake of recording. But I've always done very well with the F-Zero games, for example. I've been alright with a couple here and there, but otherwise it is pretty much just F-Zero when it comes to racing games. Which is why I do think we need another F-Zero game, and why I believe it can coexist alongside Mario Kart, because Mario Kart's the game you can pick up and play, you can have a bit of fun with it, and it's got great multiplayer. It easily outstrips F-Zero, but I genuinely believe that F-Zero is an ultimately fairer single-player experience for people who want pure racing. I still believe, in terms of graphics, GX holds up just as well today as it did when it was first released. But enough about that, and onto the genres I do actually enjoy, because otherwise I'll wind up getting on a soapbox about the F-Zero series and you'll probably be really, really bored with me. 3D platformers have, well, they've been my bag because I grew up with the Nintendo 64. I just missed out on the SNES era. I didn't get into video gaming until the Nintendo 64 era was just starting off and in full swing. We didn't really have much access to a Super Nintendo apart from relatives in another state and maybe one or two friends who had one. It was the Nintendo 64 all the way, and to this day, I'm pretty horrible at 2D platformers, if I'm going to be honest. Maybe some of the modern Mario games I'm alright with that are set in the 2D style, but the older 2D platformers I'm absolutely hopeless with. I don't know how much experience from Mario Maker I could take into those. I do my best, but I would probably be absolutely horrible with them. I've definitely been a big fan of turn-based strategy. I think I got into Advance Wars first, then got into Fire Emblem because of Super Smash Bros. Fire Emblem has influenced the way I play Advance Wars, because I will try and protect my units there and try and lose as few as possible. Kind of an interesting mentality, because Advance Wars is very much a we have reserves, war is essentially fun, it's just people goofing around and things like that, whereas Fire Emblem is usually every death counts, though you'll probably just wind up resetting anyway if somebody does wind up dying. But I've enjoyed that sort of strategic element, and I like games that let me explore as well. Games like the Legend of Zelda series, where you do get to just sort of wander around, that was the thing I loved most about Breath of the Wild. The fact I could just sort of wander around, do my own thing, and just see what there was. I do wish there was a bit more to find. Probably my most interesting discovery was the time I wound up using the parachute to accidentally nearly land on a Lionel. But I did enjoy just sort of wandering around and seeing what I could find. In the same way, I like being able to chart my own dungeons in the Etrian Odyssey series, finding out everything in there, gradually learning, building up on those. So I do have a few RPGs along the way, as well as those adventure-style games. Those are probably my main ones, but I will try just about anything, really. There are going to be ones that I'm absolutely hopeless at, quite obviously, but I do try and keep all my options open. But I'm usually going to go with throwbacks to those classic platformers I grew up with. I'm going to pick up turn-based strategy games along the way. And I'm not really the sort for first-person shooters either. I think GoldenEye proved, at least in multiplayer anyway, that I am simply an abysmal shot and should not go anywhere near those games. Now, I'll actually have to do some explanations because we are getting ready to check out the custom parts at long last. All 10 outfits are ready to go. So here we are looking at my hard mode file. We can assemble the knight armor as our default outfit. There we are. Pretty basic, but pretty stylish as well. You can only use these in battle mode. Let's switch to the dragon outfit now. Nice and stylish, generally found in Green Garden. Little fiercer for your average dragon knight. Next up we have the iron outfit. Most of these will be found all over the place. Now some of them are actually acquired by beating the game, so you'll have to be careful about what you find. Anyway, we have a cat outfit as well. 2 sets of cat paws, a very nice cat suit, and our cat hood, complete with whiskers, ears, and a nice little tail. And a bell. I wondered what that was for a while. I thought it was an arrow. Anyway, we can get our ponytails, though they are pigtails, dress, fans, and bubby socks for a somewhat stereotypical girl outfit. The next one is the cool guy. We get the high tops, the slash claws, which make us look like a budget Wolverine, the Shogun kimono, and the sunglasses, the hard-to-get sunglasses. So there we are. A little odd, but not too bad. Now we move on to our bird. Duck Float is infamous. We will get our chicken wings, and duck feet will wrap it up. Nice little outfit, really. Then we can move on to one of our weird outfits. It is literally, I believe, the weird set. The drill arms feature in the legendary Chicken Man design. We have a rocking horse, and that clown smile is disturbing. It's also kind of interesting to note that some of them do just float in front of Bomberman's face, kind of like Bomberman's actual face. And that karate wear is basically just Goku's gi. We also add the boxing gloves, and though the game calls them clogs, they're like those sandals people wear in Japan. So there's our fighter outfit. And then we have all the gold parts. Beat the game with 120 gold cards in under 3 hours on hard mode to get the gold armor. All these outfits have special quotes if you win a battle match while wearing a full set of these. It takes a lot of work to do this, and I'll admit, as I said, there's an asterisk next to my achievement. But we'll wrap it up by showing off the outfit of the Iron Sword, my custom Bomberman. I think it was the Iron Sneakers, so there we are. Might as well save that little bit of data. And now we have come to the end of the main project. It's been an amazing adventure across 6 different worlds. There have been spectacular achievements, ridiculous deaths, great battles. All that's left for me to show is the multiplayer, and hopefully I will be able to do that very soon. As always, look after yourselves and those important to you, be good to one another, and until next mission, this is Red 2 returning to base.